Now, former President Emilio Kibaki, who is just lost on the 22nd of April, is to be laid to rest, right? On Friday, this Friday, which is going to be a public holiday. We are going to have a conversation here on the legacy that he has left behind, taking a look especially on the economic front. How did he turn around the economy? What things did he do good? And what are some of the things that he could have done better? What are the things that we can improve on? What can we learn from the presidency of Emilio Kibaki? And what is the economy and what is the contribution to the current economic status of the country right now? How different will things be different kama angekuwa hapa? Na maoni ya Wakenya. Wakenya wanasemaje kwa streets about the late president Emilio Kibaki? Let's get to it first.
Nasema alifanya kazi mzuri. Juu wenye alitangaza mwaka wa 2002 shule zikuwe za bure, mimi sikuwa naenda shule. Sasa nikapata hiyo kibali, akasaidia hizo serikali zenye zimepita zikuwa zinafanya hiyo kitu. Lakini sasa upande wa uchumi pia alifanya mzuri, maisha ikuwa ngumu kama saa.
Nashukuru hii serikali ya mzee Kibaki, ni serikali ambayo iliongoza Wakenya vizuri. Sisi kama vijana, huyu mzee alikuwa ametusaidia sana.
Nilikuwa na hope sana nione mzee Kibaki, sababu mzee Kibaki na muomboleza, na kitu kimefanya nimekuja hapa, alitusaidia mambo ya free education. Sababu watu wengine wetu tumetoka family iko very poor, haikuwa na uwezo wa kutusomeza, lakini alitusaidia tukakuwa na free education.
Mzee wacha pumzike. Juu kiangalia historia yake ni revolutionist. So na feel na Kenya tunaomba tupate kiongozi kama yeye. Ndio maombi yangu.
Tulikupenda sana baba, Mwenyezi Mungu ailaze roho yako mahali pema peponi, siku moja tutakutana.
The December 2002 parade in Uhuru Park, Nairobi was an assembly of love, courage and hope back then when Mwai Kibaki was ascending to power as the President of the Republic of Kenya. Now his lowest moments, of course, in 2007/2008 during the post-election violence that happened in Kenya. But in between those two terms, a lot of things happened, from economic projects to political organizations to international relations to every single thing that is internet as of the moment. And that conversation, of course, we are having it here with Eric Mashari ambaye ananijoin on set. And here on the dailies, the Standard, the Daily Nation, the Business Daily, on the front page, you can be able to find this very great tribute that has been done on several pages for the former president, whose body will lie in state until tomorrow for wananchi to pay their last respects before he's given a state funeral in his Othaya home on Friday, which has also been declared a public holiday in the country. So ukiangalia pale hivyo, that military level of escort that was done by the Kenya Defence Forces to the National Assembly yesterday for the third president, Mwai Kibaki. Eric, hello. Rest in peace to such a giant in Kenya and of course in world politics as well. I don't know, what is something that you remember off the top of your head, Mwai Kibaki? Mimi nakumbuka siku moja flag ilianguka. Jamaa akajaribu kuweka chana hiyo ilale hivyo vile imelala.
Yes.
Very relaxed guy, hana pressure, hana mbio. That is the thing I think I remember most about him.
First of all, I would probably start by maybe giving my condolences to the family and to the nation at large as we mourn this great man. I think one of the things I would remember the late His Excellency Mwai Kibaki was he was a very funny guy.
Yeah, extremely.
Yeah, and also he loved golf. He would always find a way to like put in a golf. Some kind of atajaribu kuweka golf anywhere
katikati ya statement.
Yeah, in a statement. So and he was actually a huge patron of the Kenya Golfing Association and contributed a bit towards Kenya having the Magical Opens the Magical Opens actually set up. So he was a really great man. I think a lot of people have a lot of fondness for him, and I believe with this loss, a lot of people have feel a little bit hurt, but that's how life goes.
Messiah reality check, yeah? So those are those moments where we get to think around how to build up on his legacy, build up on some of those lessons that he imparted or that he lived by. And this is a man who, way before he ascended to power, people knew that this is a force to reckon with. In 1974, actually, Time magazine ranked Kibaki among the top 100 individuals around the world likely to become head of state. And that was back in 1974. And when Moi succeeded President Jomo Kenyatta in 1978, he appointed Kibaki as vice president. And, suddenly, what that led to. A few years later, he became the president of the republic. He settled into his role of the Minister of Health from 1988 to 1991. Akaingia multi-party democracy. He was also unsuccessfully ran for president too. I think we have to mention that in 1992 and back in 1997. But in 2002, of course, now that's when he came to power. Now we're taking a look at several of those things that he did, especially on the economic front. How did he turn around the situation in Kenya? I know by the end of his tenure, the growth of the Kenyan economy had hit 7.1%. And you were telling me earlier that there was a time that there was a high of 8%.
8.64%.
8.64%. That's quite high considering how the situation is right about now. So some of those policies that he enacted, some of those he did transform the broken economy coming from the Nyayo era back then. Do you think, first of all, general, we can say he did a great job in 10 years? And what are some of those pointers you feel? Zenye wewe unaweza sema hapa tick, hapa tick?
In general, when it comes to the economy, the late Moi Kibaki, when he took over power, he took over an economy that was growing at a rate of 0.55% per annum. That was our growth rate.
That's low.
Yeah, that was very low. So I think what he did was the whole restructuring of the economy. Because now as it was then, it was mostly a demand-driven economy. So we only produce when there is demand. And he switched it over to supply, a supply-driven economy. A supply-driven economy would mean that we would have the opportunity to produce things. Our productivity would actually go up. So that, I think, was the shifting of the economy from a demand-driven to a supply-driven economy. I think that was a very wise move. And I think we can not underestimate the value of his policies, especially in banking. He brought a bit of sanity towards the banking sector. And remember, this time banks would only deal with government. And access to credit, especially for common mwananchi, was really high. I remember at that time interest rates would go to almost 20-something%. Yeah.
And he slashed them.
Yeah, he slashed them. That a rate of 26% is almost insane. Yeah. And he actually brought them down, brought a bit of sanity towards the banking sector. It was then, if you remember, that SACCOs started gaining now they started getting popularity. People actually saw the need for them because
loans were now easily accessible.
Yeah,
right.
The banking sector would not was not properly set up to meet the needs of a really large informal sector, which was where the most of the populace lay. So I think some of the reforms, and especially with the outcome of the SACCOs, that was a really wonderful thing.
And also bringing competency in the Kenya Revenue Authority, which also helped revenue for the government side as well.
Yeah, at least now they were able to put in, they were able to raise in a little bit more revenue that way they were able to implement on their own government instead of actually going to the same banks to borrow, issue treasury bills, which was how banks used to make money. They used to work with government a lot and ignore the common man. So with some of those things that he did with KRA, liquidity came back into the market. People had had access to credit. That is why you feel you will hear people say wakati wa Moi Kibaki pesa ilikuwa kwa mfuko.
Nilikuwa na pesa kwa mfuko.
Yeah. So there was an ease of credit and access to credit. Something I will believe that was monumental, and we're actually feeling the results right now. Back then you wouldn't really feel them, but it is important that we realize or remember that it was the late Moi Kibaki who actually brought in the first fiber network into the country.
Right, and that's true. Very serious fiber cables connection in Kenya, unlike any other place in the continent.
Yeah. Right now we have 6 coming into the country. The first line he was responsible for that, and actually he didn't really realize it then. But Moi Kibaki, the late Moi Kibaki, he is really the father of the digital economy.
That's true.
Yeah. So he didn't see it grow to the point where it is right now, but.
Well, according to the numbers, though, it was a huge increase. When he was getting into power, there were only 3 million mobile phone subscribers, and only 250,000 had internet access, and that was in 2003. By the time he was leaving, 30 million Kenyans were using mobile phones, 14 million had access to the internet. So he was really the father of ICT in the country. And of course, we can't fail to mention that even the Konza Technopolis was also started back then.
Yeah, another brainchild of his, which the Konza city actually fell into the larger Vision 2030 plan, which is something very unique and something which I'm very happy to see we are progressing towards achieving, which was a dream by them to have Kenya as a middle income to earn middle income status by 2030. We moved towards we at present we are a lower middle income economy. So I think we are on the right track.
The blueprint of Vision 2030 started way back by him. Right.
So this is where people we maybe need to correct people. We are Kenya is not a third world country. It's not an underdeveloped country.
We left that.
We left that. We are now a developing country. We are still in lower middle income, but I feel very confident that by the time we get to 2030, we will have achieved those the goals of the vision.
One of those other things that he mentioned when he was coming to power that he's going to deal with, apart from unemployment and fixing the economy, was illiteracy and lack of access to quality education. That is why we are, of course, he's also the father of free education, which I am also a beneficiary of. I don't know kama ulikuwa shamalizana na mambo ya shule hiyo.
Unfortunately.
Sikufikia maziwa kama wewe, lakini nilifikia free primary education, and we can see the fruits. Of course, a lot of students were able to go to school, and that has led even into the current what we call 100% transition, which will not have been able to happen if most of these students couldn't get free primary school education. So I think it's a very huge one, a very huge one on his point, on his part.
You remember, no country can actually get to the middle income level status with an illiterate populace. So and coupling that up with the fact that Africa has the youngest population on the planet, having a young population that is illiterate is very dangerous to a country. So the fact that he was able to actually see the future and the need to have this population as very literate was a very wonderful thing. It is during his reign that we had so many schools now starting being set up. There was a bit of quality that went back to public schools. For those of us who there before
that. Before all of that,
we could remember that public schools had a really good rep, but something happened during the last from probably 92 to 2002, and private schools now started coming in, and most parents would prefer now to take their children to private schools because quality was assured, unlike in public schools where quality seemed to probably just go with the drain, to go down the drain. But upon the late Moi Kibaki's reign, that is when quality started coming back a bit.
To public schools, yeah?
Yeah, to public schools. Again, we can now, based on that, we can actually now say that kama wa Kenya tuwajivunia. Just a statistics, just a small statistic. Yeah, and I'm going to talk about the region where I'm from, because that is where I know most.
His region.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you look at the entire Mount Kenya region, there are approximately 25 to 27,000 schools. The entire Tanzania, the entire Republic of Tanzania has 25,000 schools. So yeah, so this show you the magnitude of importance, or the level of importance that was given towards education, and still is being given to education to date in this country.
Right.
So it is based upon that His Excellency, when he came to power, Uhuru Kenyatta, now went ahead since the base was well planted, he went ahead and gave free secondary education. And remember, we couldn't have free secondary education without
free primary education.
So we have, at least we can say that, and this is a very good statistic. It's something that as Kenyans we should feel very proud of. We among the very few African countries that can say we have a literacy of up to 86%, a literacy rate of up to 86%.
That's high.
That's pretty high, not just on the continent, but globally as well.
Yeah.
So I think we are doing very well. Yeah.
Yeah. So now, even the free tuition in youth polytechnics was also something that was being done towards the end of his tenure. I'm not sure if youth polytechnics currently offer free tuition to attract the trainees, but that was also something that Emilio Moi Kibaki, of course, instituted back then. Now, the other thing, of course, which has, since we're mentioning things which have trickled into the current politics, is CDF.
Yeah.
2003.
Very, very, very forward-sighted move, if you ask me. In fact, the success of CDF is partly responsible for the current the state of devolution that the current constitution adheres to. Yeah?
Right.
And it also helped regional as a solution. It was partly a solution to regional imbalance. You remember at this time, the north, when I say the north, I'm referring to the counties of Turkana, Marsabit, Mandera, Wajir, and maybe a bit of Isiolo or Garissa, but not as much. They were largely, honestly, I don't want to use the word ignored, but
marginalized in development.
Yeah, a bit marginalized development-wise. And the CDF actually at least tried to level in the playing field. His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta, later on with the evolution, they did come up with, the Constitution actually required the need of having an equalization fund, especially for that side of the country. But CDF dealt such a great innovation by the Kibaki government that I think most schools were built under that.
Yeah.
Now you had resources were closer to you. You no longer had to that fear that serikali ndo inaleta kila kitu. Now you knew who you to go and ask. And who to hold accountable.
Right.
So now you had your area representative who had access to this. So if there was no school, there was no health, there was no issue about. I mean, your area representative could no longer tell you that lazima tungoje minister. Now that you have access to resource closer to you.
Right.
And I think
we saw bursaries, we saw development projects, schools, health facilities, so many built under CDF.
Yeah. I believe CDF was partly to blame for the death of all the harambes that used to happen all the time, Yeah. You will have a harambe for school fees, for this, all everywhere. So at CDF came in, was a better solution to harambes because now government was acting a bit more responsibly.
Right. Yeah. You mentioned the new constitution, which brought, of course, devolution, and its promulgation was also done while in 2010 while he was still, of course, the president. And this, of course, brought in power, or the balance of power between some of those independent offices like the IEBC, the judiciary, the National Police Service, which is also something really good, the new constitution which we are currently using to ensure that there's adherence to law and justice is offered to all of Kenya.
In regards to the new constitution, I think sometimes we maybe water down how much or how good a constitution we have. Remember, this is it's a hybrid of very many different systems. Maybe the thing I would assume they ignored was maybe how to Africanize it in a way, or Kenyanize it in a way. But in good regard, this is one of the best documents you will regard in globally. And from it, I think we see that there was an attempt to fix the mistakes of the past. Remember, the constitution is a living document, so you can't really just go there and say it's a stoic. And I believe just to bring back the ruling by the BBI, by the Supreme Court on the BBI, when they were arguing on whether the anchors in the constitution that remain, that cannot be untouched. There is a term for it. It slips my mind right now. But that was just confirmation for what the 2010 guys did, what they were trying to achieve, which is basically fix the ills of the past, learn from it, and grow from it. I believe they really did a good job. Right now we are enjoying their fruits that we are really enjoying. For if you remember before, just as an example, the police were responsible for arresting you and actually prosecuting you. So justice wasn't. You wouldn't say that you had a fair chance at justice if the person who is the person who accusing you of doing a certain wrong is also the same person who is prosecuting you in front of the magistrate or judge or whatever. So right now you have an independent office that is responsible for that. So that means if there was a mistake on the police side, then this individual, this separate entity, which is independent, by the office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, is now responsible to make sure that there is a quality standard that is reached upon, so that your case can actually go to court. So the days of takushika kama na nikupeleke koti if you don't do what I want, I think we have them.
So giving that power and also independence to some of these bodies, that's why we can see the judiciary can do its own thing, speak its own mind without worrying what the executive thinks about, because that is safeguarded by the new constitution. Something we can't fail to look at is the development projects, which we are proud of right at the moment. Expressway, Thika Road, and SGR. All these are things that the ball started rolling back then during the coalition government, especially. And we have seen the Thika Road, which was also a pioneer in a very huge project that helped relieve the stress of traffic and also open up some of the rural places. I remember before the development projects began, Kenya's allocation to road projects was low, and I was trying to get those numbers. But as I get that, in my rural area, the major highway from where I was at to the town was Amoram Road, and baadaye kule ini barabara ya Kibaki. Barabara ya Kibaki imefika mashinani. So we have to really do credit him for the major development projects, including the SGR. When it comes to the development record of the late, I think he really did well, especially in setting up a standard for us. Before that, I think we couldn't believe that we would be able to do that as ourselves. But after that, I think there was a bit of confidence that was packed in us that we are actually able to be able to build this. We actually deserve this quality of life. People were so used to muddy roads, the Harambes to
to like once a truck gets stuck in mud somewhere, you had like a small harambe to
come and push
to push it out of there. And once you start when with the Kibaki government, people actually started to see tarmac road in their villages, and this was a huge wake up call to people. And it's something that actually even the president right now, the current president right now, credits to, and has actually continued on. We had the what's this highway called? The Thika Road super highway, which was built under the late Kibaki's reign, and I don't think the amount of development that came out of that, just by the construction of that and being adjacent to it, was so huge, and the impact was so great.
You can notice it along the highway as well.
I mean, so many towns have developed along that. Kenyatta Road, for instance, didn't exist. Bypass. Bypass. The whole people from the Kamakis area, all that didn't exist before then. And I mean, so many millionaires were created from all this.
And he had increased the spending, as I was trying to get those numbers. And under that Roads 2000 program, which was seeking to improve more than 7,000 kilometers of rural roads, and generated, of course, employment, which we can't fail to mention as well. Trained contractors and all of that, spent more than 1 billion, which was an increase in expenditure for rural parts of Kenya, and this is according to the Ministry of Roads. So improving and focusing on infrastructure, which now even the current president, has been consistently improving on.
And remember, most of our population is actually in the rural area, which is something we city folk tend to forget. Most of our population is in the rural area, so he actually stepped up the process of taking development back to mashinani, which is another way, which is maybe another maybe a proponent towards devolution. Because once devolution came in, counties were now funded from the national government and expected to do the same thing, take development to mashinani, mostly focus on that, which was again started by the late Emilio.
Right. On infrastructure as well, in 2012 he expanded the Kisumu International Airport, and the construction of a new terminal at JKIA, right? And also another, opening of construction of a 1 kilometer container terminal, which cost like 30 billion, but helped in expanding that Lamu, South Sudan, Ethiopia transport corridor.
LAPSET, and I think that is one. We might not. I think that is among the very few projects that we haven't started feeling the impact of directly. But I believe once that project is complete, that is something that Kenyans will actually really enjoy. It will have a huge impact on the Kenyan economy. It's already started, but once it's complete and it starts working, it's going to have a very meaningful impact on the Kenyan economy, probably just as impactful as the SGR.
Right, definitely. So we wait on the LAPSET,
if not more, actually.
if not more, probably more, because it's opening, of course, to other regions. Before we get to maybe 2-3 things that you feel he could have done better. I'm not going to say that he did bad. He could have done better. Health as well, which is the thing that I almost forgot. During his time, there was extreme sensitization towards HIV or against HIV and AIDS, and also malaria, mosquito nets. Nakumbuka sometime back, every single household ilikuwa inapata mosquito nets every 2 weeks. Naletewa free from the government. Just take it. And that, I think, helped reduce that high rate of malaria infections in the country.
So I think what he was going for was maybe treating the problem at the source. Remember, our health sector, which is something I wish he had done a bit more or worked out a bit more on, wasn't really competent, especially our public health facilities. Up to date, I still think there is a lot that needs to be done. However, a lot has been done. But remember, with a growing population, the late had a population of 20 million Kenyans. His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta has inherited a 50 million plus population. So I think health needs to be looked at on very seriously. Though credits to the late Kibaki's government, they did try to fix fix issues at the source. So instead of coming to treat you with symptoms of malaria and TB, remember TB, this is when he really insisted upon it. That is when treatment for TB became free. And so he tried to treat.
And now we rarely hear of TB cases. Very kidogo sana.
Yeah, it's maybe the one-off here. Maybe there's a symptom.
And it's also treatable. Outbreak. It was fatal back then. I remember you get TB in 1 week. Ushapotea.
Yeah. Right now, it's you get TB. You just walk into any government clinic and you get pills and get treated for free.
Yeah.
And all this was started by the late.
Right.
So I think when it comes to health, there's quite a bit to credit him for. However, I still insist that a lot more could have been done
in that sector.
Yeah.
Now that we are happy, a lot more should have been done. One of those other things that I feel could have been done better, because I know you've mentioned the lab set project, and we recently had a squabble of international waters pale over, which started back then, and I personally feel that he could have done much more to help solve that issue, including plus the Migingo Island issue, which you already told me that he fixed. Yeah. So maybe those international relations between Kenya and Uganda. I do understand that Yoweri Museveni at the time was not off the idea that the economic, the borders should be porous for economic exchange between Kenya, Uganda and TZ, but he insisted, something that eventually we've seen come to fruition. However, on that issue of international waters, I think he could have done better. Maybe you could correct me again on Kenya-Somalia.
In regards to, I will probably address it as the national security, and maybe go into a bit of diplomacy as well. In regards to national security, I think Kenya was at a very trying moment. Remember, we are even throughout the Moi administration, the late Moi's administration, Kenya was regarded to as a vassal of peace, as an island of peace in a sea of chaos. So we had everyone of our neighbors going through something, and coming into this administration now, Kenya's resolve was being tested. It started off, maybe you could say, with the whole Migingo issue. It started with the East African Community Affair. There was a way in which there was a laid out procedure in which the EAC would go on into maybe morphing into the EAF, and the common market, common currencies, you had to follow it consistently. So I think the largest tiff between the heads of state at the time was on how to implement the common market. Maybe we should all glory to God, right now it is in place, but the common market had to exist before you can actually go into other things. You'll see, maybe as a, it's normal to have a difference of opinion. Other leaders will probably have wished we had a much better political integration before then, but in my own wisdom, I believe the common market should have come first, which is what happened. And I believe from that, we're having trade right now. Kenya's largest trading partner is Uganda. We trade more with Uganda than we do with any other country on the planet.
Right, and it's a vision that he saw
back then. So even regardless of the political tips, I think that was still a major success. In regards to the whole Migingo affair, when you are neighbors, hamtakosa kupigania nani aliacha nini wapi ama wapi. So
really,
it was just a similar incident, especially when it comes to Migingo. I think most of it was from the fact that the waters surrounding the island were very fish rich, and there was claim by both sides. This is the Republic of Kenya and that of Uganda.
Right.
And I think it was also during his tenure that they set up a constitutional review commission. We are still waiting for the report to date, but I think it was that job was taken over by the IEBC, which is now responsible for reviewing commission. We'll see how that comes along. Okay. On the whole issue of Somalia,
yeah.
Remember, it was during his time.
The waters, international waters, and also the troops.
Yeah. For a man who never wore military fatigue, the only president to date who never wore military fatigue, it is notable that he is the president who actually sent our troops to war. At this moment, at that moment particularly, I remember we had a lot of problem with the Al-Shabaab. That is when it was really kicking in. They would come into Kenya like it's their own place
and just do their thing and
do
leave.
their thing, kidnap people and then take them to Somalia for ransom. So that needed necessitated fixing.
Yeah.
And despite a lot of opposition from international partners, especially countries like the US and the UK, we still went ahead and actually deployed our troops. That is when Operation Linda Inchi took place, which has been largely successful. And credit goes to him again. It is also, remember, during his tenure that actually the federal government of Somalia was actually set up here in Nairobi.
Right.
Also, and not just that, also the government in
South Sudan.
In South Sudan.
Yeah. So very diplomatic guy.
Yeah, he did actually, and I think he really cemented Kenya's Kenya as a diplomatic power,
right,
or regional diplomatic power from then, which we have only grown. Right now we are cheering
EAC.
Not just the EAC, but we are now global.
Security Council.
We're in the UN Security Council. We chair the Afro-Caribbean group.
Right.
So our diplomatic prowess is only growing. Kenya has been voted numerous times by the African Union as the African Union representative on climate change action and the blue economy.
Nice.
So our stature is only growing from what the late started off. Yeah.
Right, and those are just some of those economic legacies ambazo the late former president Emilio Mwai Kibaki left. We might not get into much detail, so ensure unaingia online, use hizo resources, pia wewe enda ujisomee zako kama haukua, and then get to make your own opinion. Na utuambie pia what you think about it on the hashtag Biashara Tuesday at KUTV_Kenya. Last remarks labda Eric, on what you can say. If you met Emilio Kibaki kabla, I don't know whether you met him, but if you had met him just before, last week, before he left us, what would you have told him?
I think first and foremost will be just thank the man for his service. I think the nation owes him a debt of gratitude. Leadership is not an easy thing, especially when you're responsible for the lives and the economic well-being of millions. It's not just a walk in the park. If you've noticed, people take on the seat of presidency and seem to like start getting older. Yeah, so the stress from that and the fact that he was actually a statesman and he put the state before himself, which was a very wonderful thing. I think that is something I admired most from him.
Right.
And I think for the younger guys, this is a very welcome opportunity for you to learn a little bit more about your history.
Right.
Let's drop the entitlement kidogo, because it is because of the works of such great men that you have the comfort of having that entitlement right now.
All right. Yeah. Asante sana Eric. Thank you for having that conversation with me, and I'm glad that we could be able to remember Emilio Mwai Kibaki pamoja mimi na wewe on this show. That is hashtag Biashara Tuesday, and that brings me to the end of the show. And since I'm doing the end of the show with you here, kama ungekuwa host wa hii show ungemaliza aje? Tumalize na hiyo yako.
Putting me on the hot seat, eh?
Yeah.
I'd probably say thank you for joining us today. Let's do this yet again next Tuesday. Don't be late. Have a good one.
At KUTV Kenya, at Richard_Kenya on all social media platforms. If you want to have breakfast in bed, sleep in the kitchen. See ya.